All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest, most fundamental shifts happening in technology right now. We're moving away from those general, one-size-fits-all software programs and into a whole new world of specialized autonomous AI systems. Systems that are literally remaking entire industries from the inside out. So let's start with the core of the problem. Just look at this. Every single minute, an absolutely insane amount of data is being created. We're talking millions of texts, billions of emails, endless transactions. It's a data explosion. But here's the truly wild part. Studies show that something like 99% of all this data just sits there, completely unused. That is a massive, massive missed opportunity, and it's a challenge that our traditional software just was never built to handle.
So, how do we fix this? Well, our journey today is going to trace this whole evolution. We'll start back in the early days of the cloud with its limitations. Then, we'll track the rise of more specialized industry clouds. And then, we get to the star of the show, the vertical AI agent. We're going to see what they're already doing out in the real world, how businesses can actually figure out their value, and finally, we'll touch on the new risks that come with this powerful new tech.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit back to the beginning of the modern software era, which was totally dominated by these huge general-purpose platforms. For years, software as a service, SaaS, has been the engine for most businesses. And these platforms are great for standardizing routine stuff, like managing customer relationships or basic inventory. Think of them kind of like a big department store. They've got a little bit of everything, and it's good enough for most situations. But what if you're a hospital that needs to triage patients based on live data, or a bank trying to head off a supply chain crisis? That generic, good enough solution just doesn't cut it. It doesn't have the deep industry-specific smarts you need for today's world. And that exact gap is what sparked the first big evolution, the shift towards specialization with what we call industry clouds. Now, this didn't happen overnight. We started with those clunky on-premise systems that companies had to manage themselves. Then, in the early 2000s, the cloud revolution, led by companies like Salesforce, changed everything. But as industries like healthcare and finance got hit with more and more regulations, they needed something more tailored. That's when we started seeing early industry solutions. And now we have these fully dedicated industry clouds that package everything, security, compliance, services, for one specific sector. And you want to know how fast this is all moving? Get this. According to Gartner, we're looking at a jump from less than 15% of companies using industry clouds in 2023 to over 70% by 2027. That's not a trend, folks. That's a fundamental reshaping of how businesses operate, because they're demanding tools built for their world, not for everyone's. But here's the thing. Even these super specialized clouds are really just the foundation. The next leap, the real game changer, is putting an autonomous, intelligent brain on top of that foundation. So what in the world is a vertical AI agent? Let's break it down. It's an intelligent system usually powered by large language models, and it's built with a deep, deep understanding of one specific industry. It's not just a tool you use, it's more like an autonomous worker that can handle complex jobs from start to finish all by itself. This table nails the difference between old-school automation and true intelligence. A bot, it just follows a script. Think of it like a traffic light. It's useful, but it's rigid. An AI agent, on the other hand, is like an air traffic controller. It sees the whole picture, understands context, makes decisions on the fly, and, here's the most important part, it actually learns and gets smarter over time. So how do these things actually work? While this first setup shows a router agent, the best way to think of it is like a hyper-intelligent switchboard operator for all of your company's data. A user asks a complex question, and the router agent instantly knows, that's a legal question, and sends it to the legal knowledge base, ensuring you get the right answer from the right source every time. Okay, now let's scale that idea up into something way more powerful. This here is a multi-agent system. You have a main orchestrator agent that acts like the ultimate project manager. It takes a big, complicated goal, breaks it down into smaller tasks, and then delegates those tasks to a whole team of specialist agents. Maybe one digs through financial data, another analyzes market trends, and a third makes sure it's all compliant. They all work together like a highly efficient team to solve the problem. And listen, this isn't some sci-fi fantasy. These systems are already out there, in the wild, creating huge value in some of the most complex industries on the planet. Take finance, where the stakes are incredibly high. Agents are sifting through thousands of transactions a second, spotting fraud patterns that are totally invisible to a human. They're automating those super tedious but critical compliance checks, things like know your customer and anti-money laundering. And they're constantly scanning for new regulations to keep banks out of trouble and away from massive fines. And in healthcare, the impact is just as profound. You have AI agents helping doctors analyze scans and patient data to suggest diagnoses and personalized treatment plans. At the same time, they're tackling the administrative nightmare of healthcare, automating intake, scheduling, claims, which frees up doctors and nurses to focus on what actually matters, taking care of patients. And then there's the beautiful chaos of logistics. Agents are acting as the ultimate optimizers here. They're predicting demand with pinpoint accuracy to make sure shelves are stocked. They're rerouting delivery trucks in real time based on traffic and weather. They can even predict when a truck is about to break down before it happens, preventing costly delays that ripple through the whole supply chain. Now, all of this sounds amazing, right? But in the real world, in the boardroom, there's always one question that matters most. How do we prove this is actually worth the money? Because let's be real, putting these systems in place is a huge project. It takes a major investment in data, people, and infrastructure. So how do you get past all the hype and actually calculate the real, tangible return on that investment? Well, the best way is to look at it through 3 different lenses. First, there's efficiency ROI. Pretty simple. How much time and money did we save? Second, growth ROI. Did this help us get new customers or sell more stuff? But the third one, this one's the secret sauce, and it's the one most companies list, risk ROI. This isn't about what you gained. It's about the disasters you avoided. It's the fraud that never happened, the regulatory fine you never had to pay. That hidden value is often the biggest return of them all. But of course, with all this new power comes a whole new landscape of risk, and you can be sure that global regulators are taking this very, very seriously. Organizations like the Financial Stability Board are already digging into how the widespread use of AI could create new, systemic risks for the entire global financial system. Because when you have autonomous agents making decisions at machine speed, even a tiny error can snowball into a massive, cascading failure. And 2 major vulnerabilities are already clear. First is dependency. The whole AI world pretty much relies on a handful of companies for the essentials, like chips and cloud services. That creates a huge single point of failure. The second risk is correlation. If every bank is using an AI agent trained on similar data, they might all start acting the same way, creating an algorithmic herd behavior that could amplify a market shock and make things much, much worse. And finally, we have cybersecurity, which is a real double-edged sword here. On one side, bad guys can use AI to create incredibly sophisticated cyber attacks that are much harder to stop. But on the other side, the AI systems themselves are so complex that they create brand new, often poorly understood vulnerabilities for those bad guys to attack. So as these incredibly powerful agents get woven deeper and deeper into our economy and our daily lives, we're left with a really critical question. The focus can't just be on what they can do for us. We also have to figure out how we build the guardrails, the governance, and the safeguards to make sure this new cognitive power is used safely, responsibly, and in a way that truly benefits all of us.